Okay. Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, we already uploaded a video where we introduce ourselves, but if you haven't seen it yet, then I'm Allie.
I'm Riley.
And once again, this channel is specifically for the IB program. We're just going to be giving you guys some tips and advice on our personal experiences throughout the IB program. For this video, we're going to be giving you some extended essay tips and just advice on how to go about your process and how to get it done like as efficiently as possible. So now we are just going to get started. We're still trying to figure out a better filming situation or just kind of finalize like how we want to do it. But for right now, we're just doing like a Zoom conference so that way like we can technically be filming together. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first tip that we have, which is picking a subject that you like. We both picked English for our subject, and it's really important to pick a subject that you like, because if you're not picking something that you're going to be spending months writing about, then you're going to hate the whole process and you're not going to do a good job on your essay. I like English and I like to read, so I chose English. At first, I didn't really know what book that I wanted to choose. I knew I kind of wanted to do something related to Tim O'Brien. He wrote The Things We Carry. We read that sophomore year. I really liked that book, and I wanted to explore the theme of courage, and I know that he talks a lot about courage in many of his novels. So I chose his book, Going After Cacciato. And actually, my English teacher now, she helped me pick out that book. And I read it over the summer, like the summer that we were supposed to be working on our EEs, and I really enjoyed it. So I decided to write my essay on that. So it's really important that you choose a subject that you like. Otherwise, you're just not going to enjoy the whole experience, like I said. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Just pick a subject that you like. It's really crucial that you do that in order to do well on this assignment for IB.
Okay, also just to kind of elaborate on what Allie just said, like, yes, bio can be a lot of work, but every subject is. It just has to be something that you're willing to invest a lot of time in. So obviously it does need to be something you're passionate about. So also she was talking about how over summer she read her book and started an outline so that she could get the whole process started and kind of know what she can start from and build off of that from there. So I just want to stress like that it is very important that you do start over the summer. I also started over the summer, and it's important that you get as much done as you can because you do have more time than you would in the school year. So it's a good idea to get that started. So I suggest reading it at least once, maybe even twice before you start your outline. And just as you read, make sure that you're taking out key evidence and quotes from either whatever your source is or whatever your data is, and make sure you're taking that out so that you can use it when you actually start the writing process. And then I also think it's a good idea to evaluate your sources or the data that you've collected in order to recognize how valuable it is or how you can actually use that in your essay. So it's a good idea to do an OPCVL. So for those of you who don't know that, you need to identify the origin, the purpose, and the context of your document or your source. And then kind of you need to weigh and discuss the values and limitations of each of those and see how you can use those to your benefit in your work. And that way you can also decide if the sources you are using are really going to be beneficial to you and if they're enough to write 3,000 to 4,000 words worth on those documents. So that part of the process is very important.
Okay, for our third tip, we have writing a strong thesis. So obviously the thesis is very important. The thesis is what's going to hook your reader and the person that's grading your essay and getting them interested in the topic that you're writing about. So it's important to just at first just write a thesis down. Write what you want to talk about, make it obvious what you want to talk about within your essay, and then over time you'll be able to go back and like evaluate that thesis and strengthen it, because it's obviously not going to be perfect the first time you write it. Just try and get like something down on paper and just like kind of like idea of what you want to be writing about, but you, like I said, don't stress about it. Like I know that I did a lot of drafts of my thesis, not only for this extended essay, but that's like all that you do in IB is you're always strengthening your theses just to make sure that it's going to strengthen your argument, and that's what you're going to be talking about all the way throughout your essay, and keeping your reader entertained and engaged with the information that you're giving them. And then with that, it's also important not only to draft your thesis, but also the paragraphs within the essay itself. For one of our friends, her advisor actually required them to do drafts for each one of their essays and kind of nitpick what they wanted to be within those specific paragraphs that they were writing. And overall, it's like mostly important just to get your thoughts down when you're writing these paragraphs. Like you're always going to be able to go back and refine them later on. It's just important to get your ideas down, because you might have something in your mind but you don't know how to put it into words. You can just kind of think about that and like put something close to what you're trying to say on the paper, and then later go back and look over it, evaluate it, and kind of strengthen like the argument that you're trying to make in that paper so that it's kind of coinciding with all the information that you have. And then finally, you're just going to want to make as many drafts as possible, whether it's just like for each individual paragraph or just the whole like draft of like the whole essay. Make as many drafts as possible because you want to make sure that it's perfect. Proofread if you make mistakes. Just keep going in there, making as many drafts to correct all those mistakes, whether it's grammar, format, simple spelling mistakes, or you want to get rid of something. Just it doesn't matter how many drafts you make. It's just the drafts are supposed to help you. I know that it can be tedious to make a lot of drafts, but it's really important that you make these drafts because it will help you in the long run.
Also, while you're going through this process of making all the drafts, it can help you see like where you still have questions and where you really want to improve it. So that way you can then take this draft and these questions to your advisor and kind of talk it through with them and see if they have any ideas that you could do to improve it, which often is the case. They'll have at least some way to spark an idea or a way to help you get out of this rut or this spot where you can't quite figure out how you want to improve something, because they do have a lot more experience with the EEs. Even if they are, even if it's their first year being an EE advisor, they do have experience with writing essays and helping students through this process, so they can be a really big help. So it's important that you rely on them. And in my case, I found that it's really important that you send the drafts of your essay to your advisor promptly, so that way before you start your next draft, you can see what they have to say about it and see if they have any ideas of what you should change, if there's something really dire or important that you need to either add in or get rid of that they can notice that you haven't yet. That's a big help. And so with that, it's important that you don't procrastinate on these drafts so that you can get as much help out of your advisors as possible. And it's also important that you're not afraid to send too many drafts or ask too many questions, because that's what they're there for. They're happy to help you, and they want to see you do well, so they'll help you in any way they can. I also suggest that you meet in person as much as you can. I know it's a lot easier to send emails, and that's good. Like obviously they can answer your questions quickly on there and everything if it's something small, but I also found it to be really beneficial to meet with my advisor in person and have her read through parts that I've been trying to work on and see what she has to say about them, so that way she can also like make annotations on the physical copy or work on pieces that I have specific questions that I didn't quite know how to phrase to her, or things like that will be easier to work through one-on-one in person.
Okay, yeah. So what Riley was saying, it's really important to meet with your advisors, and I do also agree. I recommend meeting with them in person. I know I definitely should have met with my advisor more during like my EE, during the time I was writing my EE. I only met with her kind of when it was required, when she had set up the meetings, but I think you should, if you have a simple question, just contact them, make a meeting with them, and do it in person, because that will make them realize that you're really really determined and dedicated to this writing process, the advisors at the end of the whole EE process, they actually write an evaluation on you. And so it's good to basically get on their good side so that they can write a good evaluation of you at the end of your EE journey. So yeah, it's really important to meet with them in person. And then when you go and meet with them, make sure you have your subject guidelines. I think that these subject guidelines are really, really helpful during the EE process. For us, we got them during our TOK class, and we had to annotate them, and I think that was really beneficial for us because we can, I know I went back and looked at the things that I highlighted and underlined, and it literally just tells you exactly what IB is looking for, and this helps you to get a better understanding of what they want, and it allows you to go back into your essay and make sure that your essay coincides with their requirements. So for example, it allows you to go back, check the format. The format and like the presentation is one of the criterions on the subject guidelines. So it's really important to make sure that your format coincides. For example, some subjects require appendixes. For English, we didn't need one, but for like bio, maybe art, those are probably gonna, oh, and math also. Those are probably gonna require more appendixes because, or appendices. Is it appendices?
Yeah.
Sorry. Some subjects require appendices like bio, math, maybe art, and because those maybe use like graphs and photos. So yeah, so like for English, we didn't have appendices because we didn't have images. Actually, you probably could add images. I'm not sure. But it just all depends on like what you're using. So just make sure to check those subject guidelines to make sure that what you're using in your essay adheres to those guidelines, and you're doing everything to ensure like everything follows through. And also citations differ amongst the subjects. So history might have Chicago format for citations, English MLA, and if you have math, you're probably not going to be allowed to use footnotes. At least that's how it was for IAs. So yeah, just make sure that you have your guidelines with you, your subject guidelines, so that way you know whether you are following all the rules, all the requirements, and making sure that everything within your essay is perfect, even if it's literally just as simple as making sure like the format is fine, like your title page is centered correctly. It all counts in the long run, and it's important to make sure that everything's perfect in order to get the full amount of points on the essay.
So one of the important aspects of these guidelines obviously is the word count, which is something that a lot of people hear about before even starting the EE process, and it can be kind of intimidating. But it's important like that you don't let that deter you from doing well and tackling the process early on. So don't be afraid to go over the word count because it's once you have everything you want out on the paper and you have your ideas ready, sorry, and you have your ideas ready, you can then go back and cut out parts that you either used too small of details or you focused too much on when you should have turned the focus to another part, or there's easy ways to cut out a few words. So don't worry about it too much if you're over. But also it's important that you're not too repetitive trying to meet the word count, because you don't have to have 4,000 words. Although that is the max, you do not have to have 4,000 words, which neither of us had quite that many. So it is important that you try to at least break the 3,000 count, I would say, maybe even 3,500, but you definitely do not need 4,000. You can be under if you prefer that. So if you are under, don't be worried about that. You can always add to it later if you find places where you can add in words or elaborate. And so that is not something you need to put your sole focus on and worry about while going through the process. There's always a way to fix that and improve that. So try not to worry about that. It's just important that you get all your thoughts out and you put them all on the paper so that way you don't forget anything. And then you can go back and clean all that up later on once you have it written down and written in basics. So that way you can build off of that and have the main content and structure of your paper written down, so then you can build off of it.
So for the
Sorry.
for the for the next tip that we have, it coincides with correcting and going over your drafts. I know we talked about this a little bit ago earlier in the video, like with asking questions with your advisor and stuff. But it's also important to get feedback from your peers and peer edit. Your peers are going through the same process as you, and maybe they've gained more insight on what like IB's really looking for, and they can help you to like refine your ideas essentially, because they might have different advisors, and so they might give you more guidance and tips based on what their advisors have told them, and that can also help you in the long run. I know that we were required to do peer edits in our TOK class, but it's really beneficial to you, like even if you're not required to do it in class, just hang out with your friends after school and get them to look over your paper and make sure that it makes sense. I know that we did that, I think, probably the night before the extended essays were due, actually. It's just really important to get an extra set of eyes looking at your paper and making sure everything makes sense, that it's coherent and it sounds logical. It'll engage the reader. It's just really important to get another pair of eyes looking at that and making sure that everything you've written is worth reading about for the examiners.
Okay. So these peer edits are really beneficial, especially in our case, since we both had English as our subject and we kind of knew the process that each of us were going through and we were able to help each other. But I also found that it's really important that you proofread it yourself and that you know your own work. So that way there may be certain things about content or things that you went over with your advisor that you already knew about that the person peer editing may not know about, so they won't be able to help you as much with that. So it's important that you know as much about the work and the sources you're working with in order to make your own edits and your own evaluation of your final product. So I highly suggest proofreading it a few times, maybe even reading it out loud to a friend or a family member, see if they have anything they catch that you should change, or if you yourself think something's a little awkward or a little off, you can change that. So it's really important that you do that so that you can improve. And then it's important that you do know your essay well so that you know what to talk about in your reflections. It's important that you know the content of your essay and the work that you used. For instance, I used 2 books and compared them, so it's important that you know at least the general storyline of each book so that you can use that in your reflections and show how you improved and show how you showed the connection between the two. So that way you have a lot to talk about in your reflections. That will be a big part of your final product and your final meeting with your advisor.
Yeah, so going along with the theme of reflections for our ninth tip is don't slack on your reflections. Your reflections make up a good portion of your extended essay, and they are just as equally as important as the essay itself. But I found it beneficial to document my process and document the issues that I ran into during my time writing the extended essay. That way I had more to write about in my reflections. So I would highly recommend that. Document your issues, write it down like on a sticky note or something. Just make sure that you remember what issues you ran into, so that way you have enough to write about in your reflections. I believe like the total word count for all 3 reflections is 500 words. So just make sure you have enough to write about, but also don't be repeating yourself and talking about the same issues that you ran into over and over. Make sure that you talk about how your advisor also helped you to overcome those issues, how maybe you overcame them yourself. Just don't slack on these reflections, because like I said, they do make up a good portion of your grade, and it's important to treat them. It's important to deal with them seriously, like you're dealing with the essay itself. Make a couple of drafts of your reflections. Have your advisor look over it. I know that your advisors are required to look over it and actually put a signature on it at the bottom. So yeah, make sure that it sounds good, it makes sense, and that you hit on like the most crucial points throughout that you ran into, or make sure you elaborate on like the most crucial events during your writing process during your writing process for this extended essay. If you don't do like as good as you had hoped on your reflection or on your extended essay, your reflections can possibly like hopefully make up for that, or you can write about like the struggles that are evident in the essay or like the issues in your essay, and that will hopefully boost your grade and get the examiner to kind of evaluate those issues and make sure you actually address them in your reflections. It's really important that you are showing like your growth throughout this writing process. The examiners really look for the values and the insight that you've gained when writing this extended essay, and making sure that you found your mistakes, you fixed them, and that your advisor was doing their job and helping you to strengthen this essay and helping you grow throughout this writing process to become a better writer, and also just become more knowledgeable on whatever you're writing and more knowledgeable about the academic world itself. Okay, and then our final tip is do not procrastinate. Riley, take it away.
Yes, just don't do it. We both did it. It's something that a lot of students run into. What?
I said it's inevitable. You're gonna procrastinate.
Yeah, it really is. Even if it's not on the final product or even your first draft, somewhere along the way you'll probably find yourself procrastinating. Oh, I should have started it last week. Oh, I should have done more over the summer. We both had problems like that.
Yeah.
It's important that when you do recognize yourself slacking or procrastinating, that you try your best to correct it and get back on track. I found that to be really important during my process, because once we got back to school, I was like, why didn't I get more of this done over summer when I had the chance? So it's really important that you do start the process early on, and that you stick with it. Because also if you procrastinate, it's harder for your advisors to help you through the process. So it's important that you get your drafts done on time when your advisors request that, so that they can give you as much feedback and help as they can before the next draft is due, which I found to be really beneficial and really important, that I wish I had done even more of, to be honest. Because then that not only helps the whole process and the content of your essay and the flow of your essay, but it also helps you in the reflection when it comes time to write your reflections, because you can see where those points were, where your advisor was a really key part of your decision making and your improvement. And so it's important to recognize how you grew from that, and how like each step of the way, how you were helped through that. So that's really important. We both really want to stress that you should not procrastinate. Obviously there are times when you're going to be, but it's important to try your best not to and stay on top of your work.
Yeah. I know that a lot, well, not a lot, but at least one advisor at our school, he actually made requirements and like had a whole schedule of when everything was due. I think I mentioned this earlier, but if your advisor isn't that structured, just be your own advisor. Set up your own schedule for yourself, make deadlines for yourself so you don't procrastinate, and try and meet those deadlines. My advisor made a schedule for me to like adhere to and to make sure that I got everything done on time. So that was really helpful. But like I said, if you don't have someone who's as structured, just be your own advisor. Make a schedule for yourself so that you're not procrastinating and you're not stressing yourself out last minute, because you're going to be stuck with this assignment for a couple of months. And it's important to get as much as you can done as early as possible, so that way you're not doing it all the night before the deadline.
Yeah, and although there are people who may get advisors that have more experience writing the EEs and helping students, it is important that you also hold yourself accountable and don't just put the blame on your advisors if they aren't giving you a strict deadlines, because it is ultimately the student's grade and their job to get everything done. And so I also recommend, if you have another friend or someone that has more strict deadlines, maybe try to follow the steps that they're doing and try to get your own done at those deadlines, so that you can also have as many drafts and as much work done at the same time. I was lucky I had a good advisor, but I also should have held myself more accountable to getting drafts done sooner and maybe even doing more, because who knows, we could always improve our work. So I think it's really important that you also hold yourself accountable as a student and recognize that at the end of the process, it is your job to make sure that the final outcome is what you want and that you get the grade you want and that you're happy with the work you put into your essay. So all that's really important.
Could not have said it better myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think that's everything we have to say, right? Do you have anything else?
I think we're good.
Okay, yeah. So that's all for this video. We're going to be posting again, I think on Friday, that our next video will be IA tips, I believe. Was it IA?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Or didn't we put like a more fun one in between, or did we not end up doing that? I forget.
It'll be a surprise.
Okay, well, we'll have another Friday video.
We'll have another video out on Friday. If you have any requests for videos you want to see, don't hesitate to let us know what those ideas are. But other than that, that's all we have. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And
can I say one thing?
I guess.
Sorry. Also, since we are quarantined, we have a lot of time on our hands despite still working, obviously. So we're happy to help you with your EE process as you guys are starting. So if you want to contact us, ask us things about our own process, our own tips, if there's anything you want us to elaborate on, feel free to contact either of us. As we did with the last video, we'll have our school emails in the description, or if you follow us on Instagram or anything, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help you.
Yes. So yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you in our next one.